Hi there, it's time now to look through this morning's paper. So it's Paper Talk. We're going to go through the back pages for the first time this week. Today we are joined by broadcaster Sophie Nicolau and the Evening Standard's chief football correspondent Dan Kilpatrick. A very good morning to you both. We are going to start with, it's yesterday's FA Cup results dominating the back pages this morning, including Manchester City's 4-0 demolition, shall we say, of Chelsea. So the Sun have gone to pot as their headline today, as Chelsea boss Graham Potter sees himself under increasing pressure. Some fans even chanting for ex-boss Thomas Tuchel at the Etihad. Dan, I'll come to you first on this. Chelsea now out of both domestic cup competitions. They're 10 points off the top four in the league. This kind of form would have cost many Chelsea managers a job in the past. So Potter is under very real pressure here, would you say?
Yeah, I think you'd have to say he is. I mean, we don't know how Todd Bowley's going to react. You know, we know if it was Roman Abramovich, Potter would definitely be under very real pressure. But Todd Bowley is still kind of untested in this situation. But I think you can have the best intentions in the world about, doing things slightly differently, building long term, getting in a project manager. But when supporters turn, and I wasn't at the game last night, so I can't speak to the mood among Chelsea supporters, but it's pretty clear that, that they're unhappy. And when fans turn, I think it's pretty hard for a manager to come back from. There was heat on Tuchel, as you Potter with fans singing for Tuchel, as you said, and also heat on Bowley with fans singing for Roman Abramovich. So if Bowley's feeling that pressure, what he's going to do is most likely make a change in the dugout. So I think Graham Potter needs to turn things around pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Sophie, we've just spoken there about how Chelsea fans showing their dissatisfaction, shall we say, last night. Reports that many left at half-time and those that were still there were chanting for Thomas Tuchel. How much of a blow is that for Potter? And do you think he can turn this situation around?
That's a real blow for him. I'll give him one caveat of fairness. He has got a tremendous amount of injuries, and they're just not average injuries. You're talking about Kante, Chilwell, Reece James, Rowe, Fofana, Loftus-Cheek, Mendy. Sterling was injured in the last game. Pulisic now is out for weeks again, just an injury-prone player. But you do have to ask, how has Graham Potter improved Chelsea since taking over in September? And not to be cute, but the only way he's improved them is in losing. He's lost 6 games. They're 19 points behind Arsenal. Removing Tuchel, who stood by the club in a very difficult period during their toughest time, won them the Champions League, the Club World Cup, the Super Cup. He was in the 2 domestic finals last season. And it just seems like Chelsea's managerial revolving door, which has been very lucrative over the years, Bella, might come back to bite them this time. It feels like they traded in a Ferrari and they ended up with a Ford. No disrespect to Potter, but maybe this job might just be a tad too big for him.
Oh, wow, Sophie, you went there early doors, didn't you? OK, look, the other big result from yesterday was League Two Stevenage's brilliant comeback win against Aston Villa. The Mirror Sport have gone with the magic of the cup set. It is on their back page. Sophie, goals in the 88th and 90th minute secured this comeback for Stevenage boss Steve Evans. He's described it as magical. We often talk about the magic of the FA Cup, don't we? But this is the kind of result that makes this competition really special.
Absolutely love this story, and this is why we love this competition. And some people want to kind of tinker with it, Bella, and take some of that away from us fans. I'm a Generation Xer. I grew loving the FA Cup. I loved the whole day on the Saturday when you used to get to watch the teams on the bus. And for Stevenage and their players and their fans, this is going to be something that they'll remember forever. To come back against the Premier League team when you're down 1-0 and score 2 goals in the 88th minute is insane stuff. You love to see it. This is what it's all about. This is partly why the beautiful game is called the beautiful game. And now they march on to Stoke, and hopefully this fairy tale can continue for them. You just love to see it.
Dan, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Unai Emery has been talked up as a cup specialist before this game. And so how much of a disappointment would it be for him and Villa fans as well to see themselves out of this competition already?
Yeah, I think it will be a frustration. I mean, it's always a frustration for any Premier League club, particularly one as ambitious as Villa, when you're out of both cup competitions by early January. I mean, I think particularly given Villa's situation as well, they're kind of bang in the middle of the table. They're not really in danger of relegation as it stands. You don't think they're going to be pulled into that. They've got too much quality in their squad, and they're not really European contenders. They're not really up, looking up the league. So I think they're bang in the middle, and a cup run would have been, something to get the fans going in the second half of the season. Something to kind of galvanise them. So I think, given the draw, home draw against a League Two side, they would have been eyeing a cup run, and the way the draw's falling with, the City potentially facing Arsenal if Arsenal win tonight, and Liverpool with a tricky replay. I think the FA Cup's pretty open this year. So yeah, I think Villa would have been looking at that in the 88th minute last night and thinking, hold on, we've got a cup specialist here. Maybe we can do something. So to lose from there will be extremely disappointing and frustrating for them.
And there is still room for one more potential cup set, should we say, tonight, as Oxford United are hosting Arsenal. This is in the last fixture of the round. There is some positive news for Mikel Arteta. The Daily Mail are reporting that there could be a comeback for Croydon De Bruyne, is how they've called Emile Smith-Rowe tonight. Sophie, Arsenal, they've had some bad luck with losing Gabriel Jesus to injury, but then how much of a boost will it be to have Smith-Rowe fit again?
In all the chaos and the madness of the transfer window, some folks have forgotten about Emile Smith-Rowe, but Arsenal fans certainly haven't forgotten about him. Last season, he contributed 10 goals to the team. He came off the bench as a super sub and adapted to a role with Martinelli's emergence in the side as well. Arteta talks about in this article too, though, about his versatility, what he can bring to the table. Bella, it's a cliche. They say he'll feel like a new signing, but for the Arsenal, he really will. He can play in that Martinelli role, the Odegaard role. Arteta even talks about him maybe, playing in the Eddie role if that's needed. It's a huge boost ahead of a very important game, the FA Cup. Arsenal, the winningest team in this competition. Mikel Arteta has won it early in his Arsenal tenure. Hasn't done as well in the past 2 seasons, and I think he's going to be wanting to get a great result tonight. And if we do get through this next round, you've got Manchester City next. So having Emile Smith-Rowe back is massive for our football club.
Just sticking with you for a second, Arsenal currently top of the Premier League. I don't need to remind you of that. 5 points clear of Manchester City. Is the FA Cup a bit of an unwanted distraction for them at the moment? Or do you think that Arteta might be prioritising this competition?
I don't like to sacrifice any of the domestic trophies. Pep is a really good example of a manager who takes them all seriously, but he also has 2 starting 11s. For us, we're finding ourselves in an improbable situation right now with the Premier League, a true reality. We have to also, though, take care of our starting 11, Bella, because beyond that, we're still a thin squad. It was proven against Newcastle, Emile Smith-Rowe, a player who'd have come off the bench and maybe had an impact in that game. So I think some Arsenal fans won't mind resting players, but sacrificing a domestic competition, you never really want to do that. This might be the year, though, where there's a little bit more forgiveness.
OK, we're going to stay in North London for a sec. The Daily Telegraph are reporting that Tottenham are targeting Brentford goalkeeper David Raya. Dan, the Telegraph reporting then that Tottenham's view is that Raya could be Hugo Lloris's long-term successor. Jordan Pickford apparently also in the frame as well. Does this reflect concern then over Lloris and his current form, or do you think this is just some succession planning?
I think it's both, to be honest. I mean, obviously Spurs are going to need a replacement for Lloris. He's got 18 months left on his contract, so he's got 1 more season in him. He's mid to late 30s now. I think he's 36, so he's not going to go on forever. And although it sounds strange to say, because he's just been in a World Cup final and had a great World Cup for France, mistakes have crept into his game. You saw that at Aston Villa on New Year's Day. Although I think, again, given that he just lost a World Cup final, we can perhaps give him a bit of leniency there. But he's definitely allowed some errors to creep into his game domestically, and particularly in big matches for Spurs. So I think this is just good succession planning. Spurs need someone to eventually be the number 1. It's not going to be Fraser Forster, who's also a similar age and is currently the number 2. So they're thinking long term, but I think they'll also be thinking that Lloris, for all the fantastic service he's given them over the years, and for all that he remains a great shot stopper, is probably a member of the first 11 who they can upgrade on, and certainly that will be true in 18 months if it's not already true today.
And Dan, will Antonio Conte be looking to bring any other signings this January?
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely will. I mean, Conte's obviously made no secret of the fact that he wants a stronger squad. He doesn't think the squad is strong enough to challenge for the big competitions at the moment. And he'll have the last January as a kind of benchmark when Spurs brought in Rodrigo Bentancur and Dejan Kulusevski at the end of the window. I mean, it's hard to get a better winter window than that. They've both been fantastic signings and really kind of revolutionised Conte's squad, taking it to another level. So I think he'll be eyeing something similar this month. They need another attacking option. You can see in the last few weeks that he's had to play Brian Hill. He's still a young player who he doesn't really trust. I think it's fair to say in the Premier League because Richarlison and Kulusevski have been out. And I think he'll want better options in midfield and at centre half as well. The big one though is right wing back. I mean, there's been a lot said about Emerson Royale and Matt Doherty, but neither of them really looks capable of doing what Conte wants there. And he's not playing Jed Spence. So I think that'll be the priority this month, along with an attacker.
Thanks ever so much, Dan. Great to get your thoughts. And Sophie as well. Thank you. Loving life at the top of the table, aren't you? Really good to speak to you both. And we'll have you back on shortly, I'm sure. Take care. That was Paper Talk then. Tonight, we are going to have more debate with Back Pages tonight. Miguel Delaney and Craig Hope will be going through the headlines at 10:30. Well, on the way next, going to bring you the best of the final night of the NFL regular season, and there is a record-breaking comeback on the PGA Tour. Stay with us.
Together, we can change it.